I sped the introduction up. I hate to run the entire introduction on each episode, even though it's only 20 seconds long, but I hate not to have an introduction at all. So I doubled the speed. If you want to see it and hear it in normal speed, watch episode 1. This episode will show you how to have a weed-free tomato patch that requires a bit less watering. It's a variation on an old idea using garden weed barrier, available in any garden store, and a 3-pound plastic coffee can, in this case, Folgers. Boris, what are you doing in there? In fact, in the early 1970s, I remember a 12 by 12 plastic square with a hole in the center and 4 3-inch protrusions or spikes in the bottom, each with a small hole in it to release water. I think it was called an automator, or actually pronounced automator. Clever, eh? The tomato, of course, was planted in the middle. Weeds couldn't grow around it, and water and fertilizer were delivered through all the openings. And the plastic kept the soil beneath moist. So let's take a look at this inexpensive homemade version. First off, you'll need the can, a very sharp utility knife, and a pair of heavy-duty gloves. While flesh, bone, and blood are great for your plants, you really don't want to add that to your tomatoes, at least not your own. I used the 3-pound plastic coffee cans cut in half. First, I cut the bottom out completely. Then I start in the middle of the can, cut it completely in half. I'm using the same weed barrier as I had on the garden last year. In fact, I didn't remove it. It usually lasts me about 2 years before it starts to deteriorate. Prevents the weeds from coming up in the early spring when the weather breaks before you've gotten out in the garden, so it's a big help for that. The only place the weeds may come up are where you have the holes where you had your tomatoes last year. Place the coffee can on the weed barrier and cut around with your utility knife. Dig out enough soil in that space to accommodate the half coffee can. Place the coffee can in so that about 1 inch is above the surface of the soil. Using a mini garden claw or any shovel or even a sharp stick, loosen up the soil in the bottom as much as possible and as far down as possible. Then add your fresh soil. This is field dug soil here, but bagged topsoil is fine. I just happen to have a nice old field in back of my house. It's got unlimited topsoil. Add some time-release fertilizer for vegetables. Mix that in well. Make a fairly deep hole. Take your tomato plant, massage the roots a little bit. Pop it in. Add some more soil if necessary. And you're all set. You can use virtually any type of pot for this, or container, plastic container that you can cut apart, that is. This is a plastic utility pot. This is a somewhat smaller pot that I used that last year, but I like the coffee cans. They seem to hold up better. They're a more flexible plastic, but like I said, any container will work. The purpose of it is, the plant is growing in here. When you water it, the water will go directly down to the roots, taking the fertilizer with it. In the meantime, on the outside, with the weed barrier cloth, the water will go down and feed any roots that happen to be going out underneath the bottomless pot. Be sure to water the tomatoes very, very well. They're very, very heavy drinkers, especially when it's very, very dry and hot. As I mentioned before, the weed barrier will last a good 2 years, maybe even 3. I use bricks to keep it in place so the wind doesn't blow it around. Of course, if it's the Better Homes and Gardens look you're after, this definitely isn't it. I didn't put quite as many tomatoes in this year as I did last year. I've got a few extra spaces. What else could I plant in here? Maybe some clumps of Swiss chard, something low, something that won't shade the tomatoes. I'm not sure peppers would do too well here. I've got a separate space for them, but I'll have to think on that. Well, there you are. Let me know how this works for you, either by emailing me or placing a comment below. Until next time, happy gardening.